Two-time Democratic presidential candidate and author Marianne Williamson isn't throwing in the towel when it comes to politics. She's pivoting. Williams announced on December 26th that she is running to be the next chair of the Democratic National Committee. In an open letter to committee membership, she makes the case that having run twice, once in 2020 and the other time in 2024, she has seen the fraying bonds between the Democratic Party and the working people it purports to represent. She writes, quote, "As chairwoman, I will work to reinvent the party from the inside out. For if we want a new president in 4 years and a new Congress in 2, then we must immediately get about the task of creating a new party."
She has received more than 40 signatures, so she is in the running against 7 other contenders. And joining us now to make her case of what it will take to put the Dems back on the right path is Marianne Williamson herself. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here in person. Love having in-studio guests.
Thank you.
Marianne, we've interviewed you so many times on the show to talk about what has gone wrong in the Democratic Party. I think there's a lot of reflecting going on now since the loss of Kamala Harris. I've heard from diverse range of people in Democratic circles what needs to be done to make the party appetizing to ordinary voters again. What is your vision? What do you think?
We have to look even deeper into the mirror. We have swayed from our own traditional values of unequivocal advocacy for the working people of the United States. Even when we say that, there are too many people who just don't buy it any longer. In many ways, over the last few years, the Democratic Party has tried to have it both ways. Yes, we want to be there for the average working American, and we don't want to go so far that we would cross the line and then offend our donors. It makes us look hypocritical when we do that, because we are hypocritical when we do that. There are other issues, of course, having to do with the organization of the D.N.C. itself. Very top-down organization, a few people in their consultancy groups controlling the power, controlling the money, controlling the decision-making, even suppressing this candidacy, not just mine, but the entire primary. And I think that did more than anything else to allow Donald Trump to walk in the door. Donald Trump is not an ordinary politician, and it's going to take more than ordinary politics in order to meet the challenge of what we consider to be his assault on democracy and our Constitution in too many ways.
And when you were launching your bid for the D.N.C., in your video you talked about the fact that there are so many Americans in pain. And you said that it didn't seem to them as if the Democratic Party had their backs anymore. So in concrete terms, how can that be corrected? What would having their backs look like?
Well, Franklin Roosevelt said that we wouldn't have to worry about a fascist takeover in this country as long as democracy delivered on its promises. We are a country predicated on the idea that all men are created equal and that governments are instituted to secure the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How can you be securing the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness when 1 in 4 Americans live with medical debt? Over half of our bankruptcies are medical bankruptcies. People are selling their blood plasma in order to pay their rent. Over 1 million people are rationing their insulin. We've got 700,000 people who are without homes in this country. We haven't raised our minimum wage in years from $7.25 an hour, when in any major city in the United States, a living wage is at least $22. So, of course, the American people on the left and the right are looking and saying, what is Washington doing for us, the people of the United States? Then you add to that what's coming in now, that they're talking, the president would extend his tax cuts, adding another $4 trillion to the debt, weakening safety measures, weakening environmental measures. Drill, baby, drill isn't just about money. It's about the damage to our planet. So the way I look at it is, and you can see this week with the Democratic senators who are now with Pete Hegseth and with Pam Bondi, they're doing their best they can to wage the arguments that need to be waged. But the Republicans are now in power in the House and the Senate, as well as the White House. So the DNC must be a megaphone, unlike times when the presidency belongs to us or the Senate or the House. So that's why I want to get in there and make the DNC the most spectacular megaphone, not just for the policies that we believe in as Democrats, not just to oppose the things which the president might do that we do not agree with, but also to stand for the values of the Democratic Party, which I believe are the values of the United States.
You ran for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020 and 2024. Yes. You opposed Joe Biden. You were one of a number of people to do so in 2020. In 2024, the attitude among so many Democratic elites was that, no, the nomination belongs to him. You challenged him anyway. Dean Phillips, a few others did. at a time where a majority of Democrats and a supermajority of the American people were saying, we worry that Joe Biden is too old for this job. And Democratic elite said, how dare you ask that question? He's fine. He's sharper than ever. He's at the top of his game. They were trying to sell the American people, a skeptical American people who were already not buying it, on that lie until it all blew up in their faces at the debate. You might think then that the Democratic Party would be a little chastened by their behavior and their cover-up of what the American people could see for themselves before the debate and turn to maybe an outsider perspective, maybe you, maybe Dean Phillips. I'm sure you have a number of disagreements on policy, but someone who was willing to point out what the American people had already latched onto. Is there any evidence they are doing that? Or is it all, oops, well, we thought he was great, and just ignore that we were obviously lying, and let's continue with business as usual?
Well, 448 members of the D.N.C. are the ones who will either provide the evidence or not, because that same group, first of all, it is against the bylaws of the D.N.C. to weigh in on who should be the candidate. The role of the political party is to stand in the background and let the people decide. They were saying from the beginning there will be no primary. Some of the state party leaders even kicked people like myself off ballots. That's why the deeper context of this race is, are you guys going to really go with that same team but a little bit better? One of the main candidates is one of the people who was kicking people off. Or are you going to say, somebody coming from the outside, as a small businesswoman, I can tell you, in any field of endeavor, when you look at the rate of failure here, we lost the White House, we lost the House, we lost the Senate. State House after State House after State House is going into red, not only red, but supermajority red. This is called failure. And this is called failure. It is not time to do more of the same, but maybe a little bit better with some more bells and whistles. And that is the question that lies before those voting members of the D.N.C. And I am happy to report that in my conversations with members, there is the appropriate level of sober questioning, I believe. People understand this is this is for Democrats, as serious a race. D.N.C. chair isn't always such a serious thing, and when we have a Democrat, I mean, it's always serious, but it's not as critical in terms of the decision as it is this time. And there are forces, of course, which would try to hold on to the idea that, no, we're the adults, we know what we're doing. That elitism was not appreciated, and also this idea that they knew what they were doing was blatantly incorrect. So now I hope that the members of the D.N.C. will recognize that someone who certainly respects the traditional political activism and organization, which must occur and which will occur if I'm president, but also, if I am chair of the D.N.C., but also, whatever, I'm going to talk about what's real. It's the same conversation, I have to tell you. I just wouldn't have a policy-making role. It's to talk about health care and how we're the only advanced nation in this world that does not have universal health care, that we used to have tuition-free college and tech school before the 60s and the 70s, that we must protect our planet, and that every hardworking American who works an honest day's work on any given day should have the dignity and should have the ability to support a family. That's how it should be in this country.
Let me play devil's advocate a little bit just for a second, Marianne, because we do hear criticism or the critique of Democrats in the past election that they were too easily painted as outside of the cultural mainstream on various issues. Now you support the creation of a Department of Peace, for example. You have supported reparations in the past, and I think still do. Completely valid arguments to make, but don't those arguments lend themselves to conservative or right-wing attacks that they are outside of the mainstream?
I think the idea of a Department of Peace, that we put peace creation, both domestically and internationally, back at the center with diplomacy of our foreign policy decision-making, I think this is every bit as much attractive to conservatives as it is to people on the left side of the political spectrum. And in running for DNC chair, I'm not running for a policy-making position. That, Hakeem Jeffries, Senator Schumer, those are the people who will be making policy. I'm running for megaphone. I'm running to be someone who observes what they're doing, tries to understand what they're doing, and does my best in a way that I believe that my 40 years of career gives me the skill set to do, to explain to the American people on a granular level, on a daily basis, this is what's happening. This is what Trump is doing. when we don't agree with it. This is what we think it's going to do to you. And this is what we are doing. This is what Democrats are doing in the House, in the Senate, in your state house, and in your city. That's been one of the problems of the DNC over the last few years. They're concentrated on the presidential election. We have to be concentrated on every precinct, in every county, and in every race. And also, I want to take these consultancy contracts, move them out into the states, so that the Democratic Party has our fingerprints on the economies of these local communities. People have seen us as out of touch because, in too many ways, we have been.
You know, this is a party that just gave the oversight committee role, for instance, to Jerry Connolly instead of AOC. Now, I obviously have a lot of policy differences with AOC, but I think it's just open and shut case that she's a more exciting and interesting political figure, someone who is better loved and has more of a profile, and actually even generates some respect from working class Republicans. There are Trump AOC voters in her district. She talked about them, but the party, what do? They give it to Jerry Connolly because, you know, old guy, hope he does very well with his cancer treatment, but it's a seniority argument, whereas Republicans, I think, are winning often with big, bold, provocative personalities, and the Democrats are like, wait your turn, and now it's somebody who's 80, 85, and that's just not exciting to the American people.
His main supporter in that was another octogenarian named Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. Now, you tell me, a woman who works at Walmart, she has 2 children, she's a single mother, she's struggling to make it. Does she give a darn about seniority? The reason Republicans would never make that mistake is because they're out to win. What are we aiming for here? To protect a class and their seniority and their wood-paneled rooms? Or are we out to win? You're right, AOC, she gets through to people, and she gets through to young people. And this idea that somebody has been there for a long time, therefore he deserves it, that's how Robert Dole lost, if I remember correctly. I mean, the Republicans have pivoted away from that kind of thing.
Robert Dole's a spring chicken compared to at the time.
Well, at the
to what
time,
our political class
at the
is
time,
now.
I remember the conversation was, he deserves it. It's his turn.
Yes.
What are we out to do here? Are we out to protect American democracy, or are we out to protect some very elite establishment that is not just elite but obsolete? It has no place in the struggles of today, given the assault on our rights and freedoms that we're facing.
What do you make of the situation, you know, the left finds itself in now? You're someone who's been in a lot of left situations and conversations with left political figures and media figures. It seems to me like the left's moment is as just an observer of it, tell me if I'm wrong, it has had some setbacks in recent years, that there's less energy and excitement around, for instance, a particular person. You know, Bernie was that person. He's reaching at some point retirement, and are there new and exciting people to animate the left and keep it being a political force at a time where it seems like there's been a shift to the right, or the right is very effective. Donald Trump just won actually the popular vote for the first time. You have leaders of industries falling in line with Trump, praising Trump, ready to work with Trump. It seems like there's a lot of work from a left standpoint to be done, and I'm not seeing that level of energy compared to 4 or 8 years ago.
One of the things I've noticed that a lot of people on the left have turned away from what they call electoralism. They're not putting their spine into electoral politics. It's into podcasting. It's into alternative media, which are important spaces because this is where ideas get incubated. But then when you actually want to get the levers of power, you've got to run for office. And so some of the best thinkers on the left, I believe, have just not wanted anything to do, number one, with running, and number two, with the Democratic Party. So that's a real problem because the left, the best of the left, I don't think has been represented actually in the Democratic Party. You know, Robbie, you say I've talked to a lot of people on the left. I've talked to a lot of people on the right as well. We have to get back to an American conversation. You know, Eisenhower said the American mind at its best is both liberal and conservative. I think in order for this country, just speaking as an American, we have to get out of our silos. I'm not even sure that term, you know, who's on the left, who's on the right. Nobody should have to feel that they have to get in line and this is what we stand for. I think of myself as on the left of the political spectrum, but that doesn't mean that everything that someone like yourselves might call leftist positions, I might go, No, I'm not feeling it. And also that's another thing about the Democratic Party. We used to be the free thinkers. That was what I really resented about what happened with this last election. We have to vote for Biden. We have to vote for Biden. We have to vote for Biden. It was like, what did you not take? Or when people would say, she's a spoiler, I'm like, did you or did you not take civics class in the 7th grade? I'm running as a Democrat. You can't be a spoiler. Sure. And also, we don't primary a sitting president. Well, I'm old enough to remember Eugene McCarthy certainly primaried Lyndon Johnson. So everybody's got to stop taking orders from a party. Everybody's got to stop taking orders from this is what we believe. Everybody's got to, I believe, read the Declaration of Independence, read a little history, read what it was about, read what this country has been about, which I hope, as chair of the D.N.C., I would be able to make people excited about American history again and understand where all this fits in, where do democratic values fit in, and I don't just mean as a party, but as a nation.
But is that free thinking that you do exhibit, is that, I mean, let's say you won the election and you do become Democratic National Committee chair. Would you not, as a free thinker, find that position actually a bit constraining of you? I mean, I don't think of you as an organizational person in the sense of sitting atop a kind of bureaucracy, which the D.N.C. is to a certain degree.
No, I believe that the Democratic Party at its best is a big tent. There would be some things. I wouldn't come mouth off about something on your show, for instance, when that's not what the House and the Senate Democrats are standing for. Nobody would be asking me to lie. There would be times where it would be appropriate for me to keep my feelings to myself, and that's in anybody's job, in any professional situation. If you take on a job to be a mouthpiece for what the Democratic Party is standing for, and at the same time, I would be working very hard to report back to the policymakers, this is what I'm hearing on the street, guys. This is what I'm hearing. They're angry. They want a higher minimum wage. They want to see, I'm telling you guys, I'm out on the street. I'm not just in Washington. They want universal health care. A majority of Republicans as well as Democrats want universal health care. So I believe that part of my job and hopefully my effectiveness would be that I could go back to the policymakers and tell them, this is what people want. Don't just listen to what a few consultants are telling you in Washington. I'm telling you what they want in Nebraska. I'm telling you what they want in Florida. I'm telling you what I heard in Texas. I'm telling you what I heard in Michigan. And I would hopefully be the eyes and ears of the people, the electorate, and the eyes and ears of the Democratic policymakers in Washington.
Marianne Williamson, we so appreciate you coming in to talk to us about your candidacy and what you feel the Democratic Party should do. Always appreciate your candor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Always lovely to be here. Thank you.
We'll have more Rising right after this. Please stay tuned.